My new novel is actually my 21st novel. It's called A Most Wanted Man. And it's set here in Hamburg, North Germany, and it turns upon, ultimately, the issue of what we now call extraordinary rendition. I've had a kind of, I can't call it a love affair, but I certainly can call it an obsession with Germany. I fell in love at an early age with German culture and German language. And when I joined the Foreign Service, I was posted to Bonn. And I came at a very privileged time, if you can call it that, for the Cuba crisis and for the erection of the Berlin Wall. And that prompted The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, which I wrote in secret when I was in the embassy in Bonn. And when my identity was revealed by Anthony Terry in the Sunday Times, I was very hastily posted to Hamburg. And it was a kind of unfinished business here in Hamburg, so I didn't stay long. I was British consul here. But I remembered the city and always wanted to write about it, and that's what brought me back. Therefore, it was very natural to me to start using Hamburg as a backdrop for my story. We begin with three characters, basically. We have Issa, who is the asylum seeker, the mystery man from Chechnya, and he arrives here, it seems, with a mission. Nobody quite knows what mission it is. Is it sinister? Is it self-interested? What is it? Is he being controlled by Islamist forces? And he awakens the curiosity of the security services here in Germany. We have Annabelle, who is the human rights lawyer, who espouses his cause and takes him into her protection. We have the mysterious Brew, the private banker who's moved here from Vienna, runs a private bank, and suddenly finds himself the object of Issa's arrival here in Hamburg. And then we have the awakened curiosity of the German intelligence service. So these people are circling around each other, and at the center, too, we have the mystery of unfulfilled love, that gradually a circle of love begins to develop. It's never quite requited, it's never quite expressed. And so I hope that the reader is constantly balancing what you might call the political imperatives against the individual passions and human morality. So this is really where the story began for me. We're in the Atlantic Hotel in Hamburg. In that chair there, I sat my banker, who was waiting to meet a woman he was suspicious of and he'd never seen before in his life. And I chose that corner so that he had a good eye line to the swing doors, but also because it's very Hamburg. Up there, that blue ceramic portrait is of Kaiser Wilhelm II, who hated Queen Victoria and wanted to muster a navy that would sink the Royal Navy. Just beneath him is a clipper of that time called the Preußen, the Prussia. And then we have these very Hanseatic paintings speaking of the mercantile nature of Hamburg. So Brew, the banker, sits there, and in she comes, and of all things he doesn't expect is this tough little lady who's just left her bicycle outside, and she has a peculiar disrespect for the elegance and expense of this place. And she comes up to him, and they meet, and immediately they lock horns. But he couldn't help noticing that she's quite a pretty girl. And she can't help noticing that behind all that banking persiflage, there ticks quite a large heart. So an adversarial but clearly interesting relationship then begins. We're at the offices of an organization called Fluchtpunkt, which is a Christian organization which does its best for asylum seekers at every level. It's a place of great altruism. And I came here because I wanted to explore the possibilities of a story about an asylum seeker here, which would be within the context of a story about terror. Als Murat dann schon 2 Jahre lang gesessen war in Guantanamo, setzte sich during the writing of the book and after the book was written, it was to Anne Harms and to her colleague Annette that I turned to make sure that, in their opinion, this fictional version of similar work to theirs was authentic, or if not authentic, credible?
I think the new book, it tells a story about a very great problem we're working about here. The situation of refugees in Germany, especially in Hamburg, is very hard. And I think it's very good for the interests of refugees when somebody make it public.
Over the year or more that the book was being written, I had at least the confidence of knowing I could refer to them. Indeed, when we first started talking, I thought that Annabelle could come from East Germany. Mm-hmm. But then I saw these very well presented young German girls on bicycles whizzing around Hamburg, and I thought, well, we'll have one of them. So this staircase marks really, for me, a traumatic moment in the story where our civil rights lawyer has decided, at great risk, to take her ex-prisoner away and hide him, actually lock him up again. And she's dealing with a very traumatized, very nervous man. And he thinks that spies are everywhere watching him. He's grown up in that environment. And they go up the stairs. She leads, and he follows reluctantly. And then, when they get to the top, there is this hideous steel door which opens into the loft, the attic, which she's bought perfectly reasonably as a place to live. And he stops and can't handle it. He sees another prison door, and it's too much for him. And she turns and gives him the key and says, "You open it." And there's a moment when a trust passes between them, and of course, because she's a handsome young woman and he's not been with a girl for 4.5 years or whatever it is, something else passes between them. And then he opens the door to his own jail, and she says, "Now, I go in first," because that's what jailers don't do. I love choosing a subject or a country or a world, a community, which gives me an education. I love the journey of arriving here with just a couple of characters sketched into my imagination and then going to find something like the real-life version of what I've been imagining. If I were not going to be published for the rest of my life, I would still continue writing. It's what I do, like other people play the violin, or it's not to make money, it's to talk, it's to communicate. So I've been very lucky. I mean, the difference is, I think I make most of the perceptions that any decent humanitarian liberal person makes, right and wrong. The difference is that I can make a story out of them, and that's what I do best, and that's what I'll go on doing until it fizzles out. I hope that I'll have a good enough friend standing behind me with a hammer to tell me when I can't write well anymore.